Brussels branch for about since 1990 now. I'd just like to say I do have a campaign website at philhunt.org.uk. I mention it because it somehow disappeared off the head office emailing, but I promised it will actually reappear on a subsequent emailing. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm quite well known in the Brussels branch. I'm an ex-treasurer. I've been a treasurer for over 5 years. I've turned around finances. I've worked for the branch, I've worked for the union, I've worked for individual members for that sort of time. I resigned as treasurer to concentrate more on campaigning, and I'm now the website manager. But I mean, as well as the official posts, I do get involved in all the campaigns, negotiations, various discussion groups, etc., negotiations. Anyway, I'm very well known among continental members. Unfortunately, a lot of you don't know me. I've never managed to make it to ADM. I really hope to go this year, but we had 3 candidates wanting to go from Brussels, so I stood aside. I'm a freelancer. I have a wide knowledge of all sorts of organisations. I've worked in companies, inside unions, inside government agency, for the commission. I've been an editor, I've been a communications manager, I've been a press officer. So really I work for lots of different people in lots of teams. I'm used to liaising with people and negotiating with them, and I know that's very important for you. I know the UK very well. I'm not at all isolated in Brussels. I'm here at least once a month, and sometimes for quite extended periods of time. Funny enough, I was in the ferry queue yesterday at Calais, and I met a BBC journalist in the West Country who was telling me all about the broadcasting situation in BBC regions, and how he as a reporter once was in front of camera with a 2-man team. He's now on his own and doing it with a silly camera that he says is on a tripod, and he's so fed up with the quality that he produces, or lack of it, that after most of his career with the Beeb, at 52 he's quitting. So I'll name no names here. I do think the NUJ has done a great deal in recent years in its strategy. Jeremy Deere has done a lot of very good things. I do think that strategy needs to be worked on more. I'd like to see the NUJ standing for a kind of kite mark for quality, for ethical journalism, for a lot of things that a lot of people want to stand for, but believe in what they do as journalists. Some of the campaigns recently have been very good. In particular, the stand-up campaign last year I thought was excellent. It was an NUJ campaign that transferred to continental Europe. November 5th was an excellent day. It was picked up by journalists and unions across Europe, and we had a very good discussion in Brussels with the rapporteur for the Council of Europe, also Mr. Hammerstein. I do think, though, that as well as commercial pressures, the NUJ journalists in particular face a lot of problems with recent government legislation. I think we do have to stand up much more strongly for our rights. I think we have to campaign against any kind of limitations on freedom to report and freedom of access to information, because I do believe those rights are under attack as we speak. And that's me in a nutshell. Again, my website, philhunt.org.uk, and you can email me via the website for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Now, Michelle Stanton.
Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a journalist at the Sunday Express, and also the past president of the union. I'm standing as DGS because I believe I'm the candidate who can bring a unique combination of grassroots experience as an activist, experience of leading the union through challenging times as a national officer, and somebody who's got experience of representing the NUJ and the wider trade union movement. I believe that members want a DGS who knows the challenges facing journalists and journalism today. They want someone who empathises with their struggles, who knows firsthand the issues facing them in their workplace, someone who's walked in their shoes, who knows what it's like juggling work, family and union responsibilities, what it's like putting your head above the parapet in an anti-union company, and I think I'm the candidate uniquely placed to do that. I'm a team player, someone who can help pull people together, who can command respect. I'm straight talking. What you see is what you get. There's lots of people here that will testify to that. I don't play political games. I'm committed and focused on the future, and my energy as DGS will be channeled on building on what's been achieved in the last decade, so that we can continue to go strength from strength. I think members really want to consign the infighting and political wrangling to the past. They want someone concentrating on the issues that matter to journalists, and they know that they'll get that from me. I've not been a paid official of the union, and I think the strengths of that position outweigh the weaknesses. I've come to the position of DGS without the baggage of the past, able to cast a fresh eye over the way the union structures are managed and run. And not being a paid official doesn't mean that I don't have experience. I do, I think plenty of it. Recognition and negotiating house agreement, experience of fighting compulsory redundancies and outsourcing and winning, experience of standing up for quality journalism, defending the role that we play as journalists in a democratic society, speaking out on ethics against racial coverage and inflammatory reporting, taking industrial action over pay, calling for fairness when it comes to work experience placements. Too many of our student members and future members face exploitation, not education, in our newsrooms. Defending equality, it's time that we have real diversity in our newsrooms. And it's been over 30 years now since equal pay legislation came into force in this country. Yet, so it's about time we had true equality of pay within media organisations, and I'll continue to speak out and fight for these issues. My experience of campaigning and negotiating, I coordinated the Stand Up for Journalism campaign last year, the focus of which was the first union-wide day of action in over 20 years, and we paid real attention to making sure that it was something that pulled in commitment and enthusiasm and energy from all sectors of the union, all of the union's nations and regions. I've represented countless individual members on issues ranging from bullying and non-payment of freelance fees, to flexible working applications and casual workers back days before they accrue employment rights. And that's just a snapshot. I think that my experience is broad, not just within the NUJ, but within the broader trade union movement, and the work that I've done internationally showing solidarity and providing practical help for sister organisations in India, Russia, Palestine and elsewhere. Last month I became the first NUJ member to be elected onto the Women's Committee of the TUC, and I've been a trustee of the charity for the past 3 years. I'm also on the editorial board of the National Council for the Training of Journalists, and I think training is something that's vital for us as a union going forward, for students, for our reps and for the industry generally, particularly as new technologies are increasingly adopted and convergence becomes the norm. We need to continue supporting reps and members, offering them the training they need to be confident in themselves and within the union. And I think an important point is that the job of the DGS is not an organiser's job. Of course, from time to time, the DGS and the GS step in to cover an official's patch during sickness or absence, but the main thrust of the job, aside from deputising for the General Secretary representing the NUJ and the wider movement, it's about internal organisation and providing integration to the wider membership and bringing new members on board. And one of the key things that I believe I can help improve is the administration of head office and the communication between Headland House in London and the other offices in Glasgow, Manchester and Dublin. For a communications union, we're sometimes not as hot on constructive dialogue and communications as we should be, and I'd like to change that for the better in the future. I'd also like to strengthen the links between the sectors, between freelancers and staff members, so that we can all work more constructively and collectively on behalf of all members and for the union as a whole. But I'll be a supportive deputy. I think that's an important thing. Somebody who offers constructive help and advice to the General Secretary, but somebody who will also always speak her mind whilst putting the unity of the union and the interests of all of our members first. But I don't just want you to take my word for it. I've built up a really broad coalition of support amongst members who are backing me, from members who've been in the union for decades, reps who are relatively new recruits, respected activists and branch officials from every single sector, region and nation of the union, as well as NUJ officials and staff. Over 260 of these members are backing me. They've united behind me because they believe that I'm the candidate who will best put the interests of members right at the heart of the union's leadership. And if elected as DGS, I'll do just that. Really appreciate you listening and turning out on a rainy day in London. I'm happy to answer any questions, obviously, at the end. And my own shameless plug for my website is michelle.dgs.org.uk. There's lots of information.
Thank you, Michelle. John Turner.
Thank you. First of all, thanks everyone for coming. I'm well used to speaking at meetings of this size. If you want to talk about copyright or the difference between an employee and a worker or contract law, then I'm your man. But I find this business of coming on having to sell myself very uncomfortable, which is one of the reasons why I've never stood for public office. The other reason is what the news of the world might drag up, but I don't want to go into that. I think what I have to offer the NUJ is unique among the 4 candidates. My first 16 years of NUJ membership were spent in Scotland working on provincial newspapers. And during that period I was a grassroots activist at every level of the union. I held office in my chapel, in my group chapel, in my branch. At the same time I sat on the Scottish Council, and I sat on the National Executive, eventually becoming President and Honorary General Treasurer. I was one of the treasurers, and I stress one, I'm not trying to claim all the credit, but I was one of the treasurers who toiled to keep to the stringent budgets that we set ourselves during the 1990s, budgets that eventually took our finances out of the red. Colin Bourne quit as Northern Organiser in '96. I was fortunate to be appointed. Well, most of you will recall that was not an easy time to be a trade union member. Well, okay, there's never really an easy time, just some times are more difficult than others, but that was a particularly low point in trade union history. In fact, I believe it was a low point in the history of our society, although some would have you believe that there really isn't any such thing as society. Because it wasn't only trade unions that suffered, all the organisations that formed the nuts and bolts of our society struggled in that climate, and we're still trying to come through that period. But trade unions were hit particularly hard because that was the intention. And with a few notable exceptions, the NUJ was de-recognised across the print industry. Many journalists felt we had nothing to offer them. Fear ruled provincial newspapers and many nationals. It was bleak. But when the 1999 Employment Relations Act was introduced, it was a significant step forward, although I would have to say it fell far short of our aspirations. I was fortunate enough to be able to organise quite a number of successful recognition campaigns before taking up the offer of the freelance job in 2001. And since then, I've been working for freelance members across all media on an individual basis, and also collectively where we are able to do that. And I always feel I have to stress that point because freelances are not in the main covered by the current union recognition legislation. For freelances, I'm afraid it's still mostly 1999. So when I say I've represented NUJ members from Wheal to Dorset, I'm not exaggerating, and you could throw in Bangkok and Phnom Penh too. I'm stepping up to the crease, Scotsman in cricket metaphor shop. But I'm stepping up to the crease for the simple reason that I want to put all these years of experience at the service of the NUJ members. As Deputy General Secretary, I feel I have value to give. I want us to remember the damage done to trade unions in the 1980s and the 1990s, and to be ever vigilant that that should not happen again. Quite the reverse, in fact. We need an increase in both employment rights and trade union rights to allow unions to support and defend their members and to make the contribution to society that the trade union movement has made in the past, because unions are the great civilising force. I believe that in Jeremy Deere, with the right person in the top job, and I'm not just saying that because he's sitting here, and I hope he chooses to stay in the job for a long time to come. And if elected, I would be a hard-working, enthusiastic and supportive deputy, able to take a considerable amount of his workload from his shoulders from the first day in the job. And I hope you find that an attractive proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Chris Hewitt.
Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. I'm standing because I want to continue the good work done by John Fry, who's given 10 years of stability, which has allowed John Foster and actually Jeremy to get on with the all-important job of turning this union round. We're out of the dark ages of Thatcherism, but there's still a lot of work to be done yet. I don't make any apology for supporting the Trade Union Freedom Bill. We don't have the powers that we need to do our job properly, and even Lady Thatcher said that just after she became Tory party leader. If you go to Germany or France or Italy, even their employees don't understand why things happen in British industrial relations, because the law in their country stopped this sort of nonsense and had conciliation and binding arbitration years ago. I know, of course, that binding arbitration can be a two-edged sword, but I'm confident that if I was able to put in every single outstanding claim in this union, the binding arbitration would win 90% of them. which all means that everyone in this room will be having another 5-10 grand a year. I have a long history of working with other people. I've worked with every President and General Secretary for the past 30 plus years, trying to get policy implemented and to help improve members' pay and conditions. I've also been a long-standing member of the local trades councils, Midlands TUC, and if I dared forget that I'm a member, Jeremy promptly re-nominates me. I believe that these contacts are very important. Certainly when I was at IPC, I was one of the very few journalists to ever be elected in what's called the Imperial FOC. That means you're the chairman of the Joint Shop Stewards Committee. That means you're representing all the unions, not just the NUJ. I believe there's only 4 other members of the NUJ who have that, who have been elected to that high office. I'm also got a good reputation as a person who gets things done. If you remember Stand Up for Journalism on the 5th of November, we organised a event in Birmingham, and such is the mark that the NUJ now has, that we not only had the management of Trinity Mirror turn up and got a good kicking off the Institute of Directors, we also had a lot of professional people come up to express their horror at the way that the number of empty desks and the rubbish pay that too many of our members earn. And that's, I think that was certainly one of the best campaigns. My branch organised the first dispute for probably in union history over pensions, attempts by Trinity Mirror to do a Maxwell. This has actually stopped them actually stealing all our pensions, although of course there's still a lot of work there to restore proper pension provision. I know pensions are boring, and when I first mentioned at ADM, half the delegates went to the bar, but now that thanks to Maxwell, of course, everyone understands what these thieving stones has been up to since the late 50s. I think management first started looking at our pension surpluses. Everyone's got a right to a decent pension. The pension surplus is your money, it's not the management's. And we need to change it in the law to stop them nicking it, because it belongs to us. Exactly the same as the NHS is your NHS, it don't belong to the government of the day, the civil service or the highly paid management. It belongs to us, the patients. And same as it's our NUJ because it belongs to us, not to the employers or to people in the house laws, etc. I think that we need to take the union forward. At every one of these events I've been to over the years, many of the ideas I've suggested have become union policy. We do have to look very carefully at how the union is structured and not go out for knee-jerk reactions. We've got to look at structures that work. The reality is today that nearly all our members work for 12 employers. And if you look at in engineering and big employers like that, it's pretty well how a lot of their unions tend to be organised. We do need group chapels at every one of the top 12 employers that work. I mean, if you look say at Peugeot, which has probably got the best group chapel in Europe, so we've got group chapel, group shop stewards committees. That is the reason why when Peugeot tried to take all the work away from Coventry, we were able to stop them and actually at least leave some, at least a third of the jobs there. Obviously, a third of jobs is still better than no jobs at all. So this sort of collectivism at a high level does work. We've also got to be look at way branches interact to industrial councils or with chapels, and most importantly of all, I believe that I'm the right person to ensure that the NEC and the General Secretary is given impartial advice from the grassroots. If you look at all the times when the unions have been great, I look at sort of the TNG under Jack Jones or the AEU under Hugh Scanlon, they had very close relations with their shop stewards on the ground floor. I know this might sound heresy in certain quarters, but I'm afraid it does work. I think we've also got to be quite ruthless in looking at whether committees actually function and deliver benefit to the union. If they obviously do benefit, obviously we want to keep them. We've got to look at a bit more carefully how we spend money. I believe this union has got a lot going for it, and I think the most important of all is recruitment, top of my list. The biggest single reason why people don't join the NUJ, say they don't know the unions, they're never asked. This is why at my branch meeting every month we have applicants coming back in to be admitted. In fact, last time we did a big recruitment function, I think we had about 30 applications come in. The union there's no secret the union has got a financial hiccup, but if we went out and recruited another 1,000 members, that would bring in £250,000 a year, and that would go a long way to getting the banks off our backs and to going back to normal service. Now, nobody's going to pretend that we've got a long way to go before getting paid and conditions right. There's absolutely no reason, and I don't make any apology for this, there's no reason why any senior journalist working on a weekly or a monthly publication shouldn't be on at least 21,000 a year. There's no reason why any evening, morning or broadcast or PR journalist should be on at least 26,000 a year. The managements can all afford it. We've got to start, and we've got to start telling them. We've got to go to people like the institute directors, the professionals, and say, look, the reason you're not getting your functions reported is because the business desk doesn't exist anymore. Or the business desk has got one journalist on at 18,000 a year when they ought to have a team of 4. We're blessed by a business editor on 40,000 a year. Now you go to the employer side and start using these arguments. These are things they understand, and they do go back to our employers and start kicking them. Of course, I don't lose any sleep about setting these people onto some of our wonderful publishers, as I'm sure some of our branch members are going to be happy to confirm. Finally, we have also got to look after our chapels. It's not the big chapels, it's the small ones. Because it's very, very easy to do, go and say, well, I've looked after the 20 largest chapels, that's it, go down the pub. It's the small ones in the middle of nowhere who probably haven't seen an official for 5 years. These are the people we've got to look to. Either it's me or I get someone to do it. Even if that means going to a meeting on a horrible night like this in the middle of nowhere. It is important to keep up those traditions, keep up those contacts, because you never know, one of those awkward associates could be General Secretary in 20 years' time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.